Yep. So my name's Ashley, and today we'll be talking a little bit about the mythologies within Blockbuster games and the legends within it, and how accurate they are, and how off the source material they go. So I'd like to start today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which I'm speaking today, the Ngunnawal people. I'd also like to pay my respect to elders, past, present, and emerging. As you can probably tell from my voice, I am Australian, and this land is, and always has been, Indigenous land. Okay. Start out by talking about the Tomb Raider games. Okay. So in the first of the recent Tomb Raider trilogies, Lara and her team are searching for Yamatai, a lost Japanese kingdom and the home of the legendary ruler Queen Himiko. They find Yamatai after their ship crashes in a storm, and they encounter the Solari, a brotherhood dedicated to serving Himiko, who they refer to as the Sun Queen. So let's have a look at how well they portray the story, or how they portray the story, as told by Lara's best friend Sam.
Sam here was just telling me about the Sun Queen.
Right, Himiko.
Can you tell me more? I'm intrigued.
Well, believe it or not, a couple thousand years ago, Queen Himiko pretty much ran things in Japan.
She loves telling this story.
Himiko was beautiful, enigmatic, but also ruthless and powerful. Legend says she had shamanistic powers.
And this is where she loses me.
Well, there's always some truth to myths.
She commanded an army of samurai warriors, her magnificent storm guard. They rode the very winds of the battle, laying waste to all who opposed them. They say the sun rose at Himiko's command, and she ruled everything its rays touched, from the mountains to the sea and beyond.
But what happened to her?
As they believe, Himiko could control the weather and create massive storms, like the one that crashed their ship. Lara wakes to find Sam and Matthias missing and finds the rest of her group. They decide to split up, and Lara accompanies Dr. Whitman, the lead archaeologist, who has these remarks to say.
These are fascinating.
I've seen these before. Oh? They must be ritualistic.
This female image is particularly interesting.
Looks like it was made quite recently.
It's by those islanders, no doubt. Judging by the wrecks out there, they were once like us. Survivors. Remarkable.
Yes, well, let's hope we don't become murderers too.
So, of course, they're always going, when they don't know what it is, it's always ritual. So, as Lara searches for supplies and ways to help them, Whitman starts analysing the artworks. He says, solar imagery. Some kind of sun worship? Amaterasu? Possibly. But why would survivors turn to worship in an ancient Japanese sun goddess? That female figure on the gate, given the age of the symbols, it could be the Sun Queen. While conversing with Lara, he states, well, there's no doubt Himiko had power. Some say shamanistic, elemental. Lara replies, a woman wields that much power, and sooner or later it gets called witchcraft. But what do the real records state? So Yamatai is very likely a real place, and its possible whereabouts is debated by many historians and archaeologists, and is considered one of the most contentious topics within Japanese history. And Yamatai is even occasionally referred to as the Japanese Atlantis. Himiko and Yamatai are recorded in the Chinese Records of the Three Kingdoms, speaking of Yamatai Go and the domain of priest Queen Himiko, who dies in 248 Common Era. This places Himiko's reign and the island of Yamatai in the ancient country of Wa, when Japan would develop several centuries later. The oldest extant Japanese text, the Kojiki Records of Ancient Matters, dating to 712 Common Era, discusses the Shintoistic creation of the myth of the birth of 8 islands, in which the god Izanagi and the goddess Izanami gave birth to the 8 great islands, the Oyashima of Japan. The last of these islands may have been Yamatai, recorded as Yamato. Himiko, however, has been almost erased from Japanese history, with little mention of her in historical texts. She does appear in several ancient Chinese texts, and it is from these where we get our best descriptions of her. She was born in 170, ruled from the age of 19 in 189 until her death in 248 at age 78, and was chosen to be ruler by people in the Yayoi period following decades of warfare among the kings of Wa. The records of Wei state that when Himiko passed away, a great mound was raised, more than 100 meters in diameter. Over 100 male and female attendants followed her to her grave. Then a king was placed upon the throne, but the people would not obey him. Assassination and murder followed. More than 1,000, were thus slain. A relative of Himiko, named Io, a girl of 13, was made queen, and order was restored. The records of the 3 kingdoms, however, state that Himiko occupied herself with magic and sorcery, bewitching the people. She had 1,000 women as attendants, but only 1 man. The Book of Later Han and the Book of Sui also attest to her use of magic, and her palace is under the protection of armed guards. So how does this compare with the narrative produced in the game? The name Himiko itself means sun-child or sun-daughter in archaic Japanese, and her linkage to magic may indicate that she held some power over the weather, although there are little sources to support this, as they tend to infer that she used her magic to gain control over the populace. The type of magic she has been linked to is Guidao, or in Japanese, Kido, which translates to Way of Demons, which is generally used to mean Taoistic folk practices and is linked to oracles. The game shows her warriors as Oni, Japanese demons, and refers to them as the Storm Guard. Himiko lives on, as her soul is transferred to a new host or priestess, and it is for this purpose that the Solari have captured Sam. There is no mention of her attendants joining her in death, although the film version of the game includes her 1,000 female attendants entombed alongside Himiko. Lara, of course, saves Sam from becoming the new host of Himiko and destroys Himiko's remains, enabling her and her surviving friends to escape from the island. The version of Yamatai and Himiko included aren't really accurate and are definitely exaggerations and subversions of the little records that remain of her. Artifacts can be found spanning much of Japanese history, while Yamatai has been lost or built over, almost certainly since the beginning of the Japan that is known today. The 2015 sequel, Rise of the Tomb Raider, shows Lara and her friend Jonah in search of the Deathless Prophet, which Lara realizes is linked to the lost city of Katesh. It is here in the Siberian wilderness that a majority of the game occurs. Lara joining forces with the local people, the remnants, and their leader Jacob, in order to stop Trinity from uncovering the divine source, which grants immortality to those who hold it. There's no myths or legends surrounding a deathless prophet that are connected to Christianity, or none that I could find at least. There's no divine source other than God himself, as he is referred to in several religious texts. However, the legend of Katesh and the legend of Koshai the Deathless, originating from Russia. Okay, so this is a little bit about Jacob and Lara talking about the city of Katesh.
In ancient times, our prophet brought the divine source to this valley. My ancestors built Katesh to protect it from the outside world.
To what end? What is the divine source, Jacob?
artifact from a time long forgotten. We believe it holds a fragment of God's soul. Legend tells us those who beheld the source were granted immortality. But others have always been drawn here, seeking its power.
So, the legend of Kitesh and the legend of Koshai the Deathless, originating from Russia, do exist. A popular Russian opera by Rimsky-Korsakov, The Legend of the Invisible City of Kitesh and the Maiden Favronica, entails the story of Kitesh as well as a book from the late 18th century, titled The Kitesh Chronicle, although the story is believed to have originated from the Old Believers. Georgy II, the Grand Prince of Vladimir from the early 13th century, originally built the town of Mali Kitesh, or Little Kitesh, on the Volga River. Later, when he found a beautiful spot on the shores of Lake Svetloya, he decided to build the town of Bolshoi Kitesh, or Big Kitesh. However, during the Mongol invasions of the 13th century, Baku Khan heard of Kitesh and ordered his army towards it. Upon the capture of Little Kitesh, one of the prisoners told the Mongols about Big Kitesh, to which the Mongols rushed to attack. They found a town with no fortifications and citizens who did not defend themselves, and instead prayed to God for their salvation. The Mongols rushed to attack, but stopped upon seeing countless fountains of water bursting forth from under the ground. They fell back and watched the town submerge into the lake. This legend survives to this day, and it is said that only those who appear in their heart and soul will find their way to Kitesh. So, Jacob, the Deathless Prophet, is closest in legend to a Russian individual, Koshai the Deathless, who is decidedly not a prophet. He's often presented as the antagonist within Russian folklore. He cannot die, as his soul has been removed from his body and resides within an egg. If the egg and the soul are smashed, he will die. This is an exact parallel to the divine source and Jacob within Rise of the Tomb Raider. Jacob claims that the divine source captures the souls of those who look upon it, including his own, and with Jacob's permission, Lara destroys the source, being careful to avert her eyes. Following destruction, Jacob dies, along with the Deathless army. These next clips, one discusses the Mongol invasion, which is reasonably accurate. The other, Jacob states that he created the Deathless army to keep the city safe and to protect the divine source. The original legend, however, Kitesh had absolutely no army, not an army full of super powerful warriors, as we'll see.
The Mongols destroyed everything, and the city sank beneath the ice.
So many of them.
So I think we can tell from that they're definitely overpowered. They're almost indestructible. They're using Greek fire. They do have weird armor that doesn't fit the time period they would have been from. And considering the original city didn't have an army at all, a little bit of an exaggeration for the point of making a game. So, another thing that interests me is that there's a scene within the game which Jacob heals the injured Jonah. But there's no explanation given, and he doesn't use this power to heal any one of his people. It instead prompts Lara to realize that Jacob is the famed prophet. So I suppose it serves a purpose for this one point in the game, but is never used again.
Oh God, no. Jonah.
Lara.
I'm here.
Lara. Listen to me.
Try not to move.
If I don't make it out of here,
Don't talk like that.
no, just listen. You can't blame yourself anymore. We all make our own choices.
His end is near.
No, he can't die.
We can help him.
How?
We must get him to the observatory, to Jacob.
Only Jacob can save Jonah now. We have to get him back to the observatory.
Jacob, he's dying.
Let me attend to him. The Lord is your guardian, your protective shade at your right hand. The sun shall not harm you by day, nor moon by night. The Lord guard your soul from all evil. The Lord guard your going and coming, from now to all time. Keep pressure on the wound. Prepare him.
So there's no mention in any of the myths of this person having healing powers. We don't know where this came from other than simply a plot device. And also when they say keep pressure on the wound, he just got rid of the wound entirely. So moving on to Shadow of the Tomb Raider, the next book in the series. The next game, sorry. So in this one, Lara and the magically healed Jonah go on the search for, again, looking for immortality, but also to stop Trinity and the group they're now working with, the Cult of Kukulkan. So they end up in, I believe it's Mexico, and get a lead to a lost city, and they end up heading towards Paititi. So the legend of Paititi talks of a lost Incan city lying to the east of the Andes, as referred to within many colonial histories, which discuss possible locations and expeditions searching for the city. So the reports of the missionary Andre Lopez in 1600 discuss a large city, rich in gold, silver, and jewels, called Paititi by the natives. Lopez, however, has never reached Paititi, and had only heard about this city secondhand. A story of a miracle being performed in the court of the king of Paititi by a crucifix taken there by a group of baptized indigenous people was heard, and Lopez reported this back. This story was then widely publicized following the Pope hearing of this. And there's a lot of parallels often drawn between Paititi and El Dorado, both as lost cities of gold within Mesoamerica, and there's also discussion that the legend of Paititi may have led to the creation of the legend of El Dorado. So let's check out Paititi a little bit.
This is incredible.
I thought I put a photo in there. Okay. So we can see the lost city of Paititi in all its glory there. So one of the main villain groups within the game is the cult of Kukulkan. This cult did exist, however, not with the nature portrayed in the game. Kukulkan is a Mayan deity, often closely linked to the Aztec Quetzalcoatl, as their names both mean feathered serpent. So let's check out a little bit of what they portray the cult of Kukulkan like.
What is this?
Cultist, waiting for their deity to appear. When the catastrophes come, the god Kukulkan must be sacrificed to power the sun. Otherwise, the world dies.
Sacrifice a god?
The sacrifice is my duty. But this cult leader will take my place and attempt to become the god. He believes we can remake the world and live in a paradise of his design.
The cult of Kukulkan was the first Mesoamerican religion or religious group to transcend old classical period linguistic and ethnic divisions, and facilitated communication and peaceful trade across many people and reached as far as the Guatemalan highlands. Not the sacrificial cult as portrayed. Well, I don't know why the video's doing that. Okay. So the cult was originally centered on Chichen Itza, although at the time of the Spanish colonization, in the city of Mayapan, the newer capital of the Maya, the high priest of Kukulkan was one of two most powerful men in the city. There is possibly human sacrifice linked to Kukulkan in El Castillo, his temple within Chichen Itza, although Kukulkan is known more for earthquakes. The ritual featured at the end of the Shadow of the Tomb Raider is more closely linked with Quetzalcoatl and the Aztec New Fire Ceremony, a sacrificial ceremony that occurred every 52 years in order to give the god Quetzalcoatl enough power to exist as the sun for another 52 years. This is a depiction of the New Fire Ceremony within one of the codices. So two of the Mayan gods that feature prominently within this game include Shakshel and Eshel. So this is our first introduction to them in the game. Let's hope this video wants to work properly this time. And we'll see what they say about it.
I know this figure. Ishal, the goddess of the full moon. Oh, and this is Shakshal, the new. There's an inscription. Shakshal, the key lies beyond her gaze. Key.
So, Shakshel is the goddess of creation, destruction, and flooding, among many other things, while Ishel is the goddess of midwifery, childbirth, and medicine. Ishel may be Shakshel's daughter, or may also represent a younger version of the goddess, like we see within Egyptian mythology and the different aspects of Ra. So, Lara seizes the dagger of Shakshel early in the game, and it's used in the final sacrifice. Crimson Fire, one of the Yakshil, the creatures from this game, takes on the persona of Shakshel and guides Ishel, who Lara assumes the position of, in making sure the sacrifice is complete.
When the crimson fire smokes, seek your mirror. Was this Unuratu's destiny? You're the Crimson Fire. I think we're supposed to work together to defeat Kukulkan. Khan. You shall.
So let's check out the sacrifice now that they've assumed their positions.
When the catastrophes come, the god Kukulkan must be sacrificed to power the sun. Otherwise the world dies.
Sacrifice a god?
The sacrifice is my duty. But if my training fails me, the Crimson Fire will guide me and hold me to my promise.
I like this world. It's not perfect. But everything I love now is in it.
After today, the eclipse will no longer represent us. We keep the sun, but you remove the shadow.
Protect it. Please. Please.
I will.
So that's very close to the Aztec New Fire ceremony that was done on behalf of Quetzalcoatl. So the myth history behind that is that the original sun god, the sun deity, was a bit of a dick. No one liked him. And when it came time for him to assume the position again to lead into a new age, nobody really wanted him to do it. And Quetzalcoatl stepped up and was like, I'll do it. So he did it. But he didn't have enough power himself to last that time. So each of the other gods sacrificed themselves to keep him in the position of the sun for the 52 years. So from then on, every 52 years, the Aztec people would do their new fire ceremony sacrifice and sacrifice humans to keep Quetzalcoatl in power and keep the sun going, as we see there from the eclipse, getting rid of the shadow, bringing out the sun. So one thing that this game does well is present a key concept within Incan, Mayan, and Aztec beliefs, which is that of duality. Shakshal is the goddess of both creation and destruction. Quetzalcoatl created the first humans, but needs humans to keep him alive. Death was not seen as it is within the Western world, but the bringing forth of new life. Many people casually playing this game will probably struggle with understanding how Lara sacrificed herself, but yet, as we would see in a few minutes, she is still alive and well. Death and rebirth go hand in hand, both with Mesoamerican spiritualities and within Shadow of the Tomb Raider. So before I move on to the Uncharted games, I'll go through some of the questions. I don't think Get Sacrificed to Power the Sun was in a risk assessment. If so, I don't know who signed off on that and was like, yeah, mate, go ahead. That's fine. Lara does learn languages like crazy. In Rise of the Tomb Raider, she goes through English that she knows, goes through 7 levels of Greek, some Mongolian, some Russian, and I think there's a few others in there. There's a collection of languages that she just picks up and you see her looking at something and she's like, I don't understand this yet. And then she comes back like a few hours later and she's like, yes, I understand this. I would love to have that power. There is a part in Shadow of the Tomb Raider where Lara does show her true archaeologist nature. A temple is falling down around her. She's about to be buried, and Jonah pulls her out by her arm because she's still in there taking photos going, wait, I need to document this. Which is pretty accurate. So, let's shift course a bit towards the Uncharted games, where nobody is actually an archaeologist. They never claim to be, which is probably good because there's too many guns involved, from what I have encountered of archaeology at least. So I'm just going to be discussing Uncharted 2 and Uncharted 3 for today. So Uncharted 1 deals with the Legend of El Dorado, in which I'm sure we've all seen numerous interpretations of. And Uncharted 4 focuses on pirates and the mythical pirate paradise of Libertalia. Pirates aren't as well known mythology-wise, so there's not too much to dig into there. I would have loved to include Lost Legacy as well, but as I've played through most of these games to get footage in the last 2 weeks, I ran out of time and unfortunately didn't get to do Lost Legacy. So, in Uncharted 2, Nathan Drake, with the help of Chloe Fraser, The initial help of Harry Flynn and the later help of Elena Fisher and Tenzin is in search for Shambhala and the Chintamani Stone, attempting to reach it before warlord Zoran Lazarevic can get hold of the power associated with the Chintamani Stone. Let's have a listen to Nate's explanation.
That, huh?
You brought us right to the doorstep.
So I'm guessing it's not a coincidence that we ended up here?
No, not exactly.
God, you're an ass. Okay, just what is it you're after anyway?
See that symbol up there? It's called the Chintamani Stone.
Nate?
It's a massive raw sapphire. It's worth millions.
So let me get this straight. You're competing with a psychopathic war criminal for a mythological gemstone?
When you put it that way, it does sound pretty stupid.
Yeah, thanks for the input, Jeff.
And it's supposedly in this temple.
Well, no. Stone itself isn't here.
Hey, look at that.
No?
No, it's in Shambhala.
Shambhala?
Nate?
Yeah, you know, Shangri-La.
Can I have a word with you, darling?
And then helicopters come in and they race into the temple. So what exactly is Shambhala? Shambhala is a mythical kingdom associated with Tibetan Buddhist beliefs. The Sanskrit name for the city is taken from a city mentioned in the Hindu Puranas, probably being Sambal within the Uttar Pradesh. There's a prophecy within the Vishnu Purana when Shambhala will become the birthplace of Kalki, the final incarnation of Vishnu, as well as the prophesied ruling kingdom of Maitreya, the future Buddha. The Kalashakra Tantra, pronunciation on that one's a bit hard, prophesizes that when the world declines into war and greed, and all is lost, the 25th Kalki king, Maitreya, will emerge from Shambhala with a huge army to vanquish the dark forces and bring about a worldwide golden age. Surprisingly, this isn't supposed to happen in 2020, although I wouldn't be surprised. But this final battle is prophesied for the year 2424 or 2425, in the 5,104th year after the death of Buddha. So Shambhala is also likely to have been an inspiration for Shangri-La, a paradise on earth hidden in a Tibetan valley, featured in the 1933 novel Lost Horizon by James Hilton, a British writer. Drake refers to Shambhala as Shangri-La in the above cutscene, and this hotel that we see, and there's also a really fun trophy associated. Okay, I forgot to put that video in. But there's a hotel that has a pool on the roof, and if you go swimming in the pool, you get a trophy for playing Marco Polo. And when you climb along the side of the hotel, as Nate does, it's the Hotel Shangri-La. So the Chintamani Stone is a wish-fulfilling jewel that appears within both Hindu and Buddhist traditions, said to be the equivalent of the Western Philosopher's Stone. Within Buddhism, it is held by the Bodhisattvas and is sometimes depicted as a luminous pearl, while in Hinduism, it is connected with the gods Vishnu and Ganesha and is often depicted as a fabulous jewel. As Nate said, in this, it's a giant sapphire. So let's have a look at them finding Shambhala and their first impressions.
Would you look at that? Hidden right in plain sight.
Open the gate!
So that's a little bit of what the mythical Shambhala looks like in their plan. And the video before of the Hotel Shangri-La, of course, is here because technical difficulties. So let's just watch that.
Okay, this way.
Nate in monkey form. The Shangri-La in shambles. Okay, so this is what the Chintamani stone looks like within Uncharted. It ends up not being a giant sapphire, but a giant collection of amber, of solidified, fossilized resin from the trees that grow throughout. So one thing that I noticed a lot while playing, but I couldn't manage to get the individual footage of each of these, if you play through it again, have a look on the walls of a lot of the different places, like the temples and the things, and the other things like that. You'll see a lot depictions of trees, of the Tree of Life, which is where Buddha sat to gain enlightenment and meditated for, I forget how long it was off the top of my head, but it was a while. So the Tree of Life we do see in a lot of mythology. So this is kind of showing up again, leads into Tibetan Buddhism, definitely, and a possible location for the Tree of Life that Buddha sat in, under. And when they, I don't know if they ate or touched or did something to the blue amber, they would turn into crazy monsters and start trying to kill everyone and being super powerful, and would wear Yeti costumes in the game. So Uncharted 3 focuses on the search for the Atlantis of the Sands, also referred to as Ubar, Wabar, and Iram. The Quran refers to this city as Iram of the Pillars. It's a legendary lost city in the Rubal Khali Desert, and there are many theories regarding its location. Bertram Thomas, an explorer, was told in 1930 of the existence of the city by his Bedouin escorts as he attempted to become the first European to cross the desert. He found no trace of a city, but told T. Lawrence of the story. It is said that the city was destroyed by a natural disaster or as punishment from God. Nicholas Clapp has been searching for Ubar for years, and Ranulph Fiennes, not the guy that played Voldemort, a different guy, released a book titled Atlantis of the Sands, The Search for the Lost City of Ubar in 1992, which gained a lot of popularity in the Western world for this. So there's little more actually known about the city. So Naughty Dog, the team behind Uncharted, had a lot of freedom to work with. So let's check out some bits of their interpretations.
You are far from home, American.
Shukran.
You do not belong out here. Any of you.
You spared me. Why not just kill me along with the others?
That would have been impolite. You are in distress. Even an enemy must be fed and sheltered. Are you my enemy, American?
Drake. My name, it's Drake.
Salim. I am Sheikh of this tribe.
Well, I don't mean to be forward, Salim. But I need a horse. I don't have anything to offer in return.
You plan to attack the English caravan alone? You know about them?
My scouts have been tracking them for 2 days. Why are you here? Why do the English cross the Rub al-Khali?
They're looking for the lost city of Ubar.
Hiram of the Pillars.
They've taken my friend hostage. He's the only one who knows the way. Once they find Aram, he'll be worthless to them. They'll kill him.
If they find Hiram, we are all dead. 3,000 years ago, King Solomon commanded the power of the Jinn. Demons, born of smokeless fire, until they rebelled. He imprisoned them in a vessel of brass and cast it into the depths of the city. Iran became a place of evil, cursed by the tormented spirits of the Jinn. The English must not reach the city. If they unleash the power of the Jinn...
We don't have much time, do we?
No. But they have the greater numbers. We cannot attack them in the open. Tonight, rest. Tomorrow, they enter the canyons. We'll take them there. We ride at dawn.
I love that scene for the background behind it, in that Bertram Thomas found out initially from Bedouin escorts, and Nate finds out more from his escorts. This one is... So Nate, in his unluckiness maybe, manages, while trying to get out into the desert, to crash an entire plane. He gets lost in the desert, goes searching around for ages. I sped this footage up to 2 times speed and it's still fairly long, but it gets the point across that it's hard to find anything in the desert. There's so much, there's nothing really, there's no landmarks along the way to be like, yes, I know that. And I think it definitely represents the struggles that people have come across when searching for Iram of the Pillars. And he looks kind of badass there. So, what's Nathan's on-paper profession? I don't even know if he has papers, honestly. He is straight up a thief. He was in an orphanage, escaped when he was 11 or 12. Found Sully, one of the other characters, in Cartagena when he was 13, got taken under his wing, has done illegal stuff his whole life, has ended up in several jails. And I'm not surprised from him. I have no idea how he's not dead from exposure and dehydration. He's both unlucky and incredibly lucky at the same time. Unlucky as in he crashed a plane. He stowed onto the enemy's plane. They found him. He decided a cargo plane was a great place to have a shootout and blew a hole in the side of the plane after somebody else had already started ejecting the cargo out the back of the plane. It's a bit questionable. And somehow he survives by holding onto a pallet of cargo really tightly and pulling the parachute cord on that. But of course, there's no other survivors. We do get a lot of backstory in the 4th Uncharted. I love it. But yeah. So we do find out more about Nathan Drake, as he calls himself. That is a giant section of the game in the sand dunes, and it's both incredibly frustrating to play because you don't know when you're controlling him, and you only control him for a few steps before he collapses, but also so cool to watch. And the scenery and like the graphics is amazing. So this is when they find Shambhala, not Shambhala, sorry, Aram of the Pillars. I'm getting my games confused. So this is when they first walk in and the first kind of view they get.
You ready? Go!
Ignore his random sounds.
It's true, it's really here. This elevator. To the bar.
Incredible. This is how the city could thrive all the way out here. The whole place must be fed by an underground spring. It's clean.
It's amazing it's still running after all these years.
Pro tip, if you find water in a lost city, don't drink it. You'll find out why in a second.
No. Stay away, please. Oh, God. Oh, no. What is this?
The special water. That's what it is.
It's moving. I gotta get out. Gotta get out of here. No, no, no. No. Can't do this. What is this? What's happening? Demons. Fire demons. Demons. Can't be. No, it's not the water. It's what's...
So he's hallucinating gin, which we'll find out a little bit of here, but if you're high on special magical water, maybe don't grab guns.
In the water.
Come again?
Listen, just bear with me for a second. Salim told me that Aram was cursed when Solomon imprisoned the evil spirits of the Jinn inside a vessel of brass, and then cast it into the depths of the city.
A genie in a bottle.
I know, it sounds pretty crazy.
Okay. So the rest of it's just the city collapsing because Nate destroys everything. But I love how in the scene before, Nate's sandwiched between two guys, one with a grenade. They both die, and Nate's totally fine. So what they're saying about the gin in the water, there is actually truth to this legend as well, although it wasn't connected to Uber. So it's been said that King Solomon imprisoned 72 jinn, which is where we get the word genie from, in a brass vessel and dumped it into the sea. So now we'll move away from the yes, I'm an archaeologist with guns and things exploding side of gaming into God of War. The more recent one, the 2018 one. So God of War is different in that it takes place entirely in a mythological setting. So Kratos, after killing almost all the deities in Greek mythology, gotta love that, retires to the realms of Norse mythology, where he falls in love and has a kid, Atreus. The game starts following the death of Faye, Kratos' wife, and Atreus' mother. The two embark on a journey to spread her ashes from the highest mountain in all the realms. So I just want to draw attention to this scene with Atreus and his deceased mother for a moment.
There do I see my mother. Oh, there do I see my father. Oh, there do they call to me. 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 Oh, there do they call to me.
So that scene, the prayer that he says is adapted from a prayer to Odin, which was invented for the 1999 film The 13th Warrior. However, it is believed to be adapted from an account of a Viking funeral and sacrifice by Ibn Fadlan in the 10th century, following the death of a great man. Simply put, a slave girl volunteers to die with the man, and following a series of practices, including sleeping with the master of each tent, the girl is lifted 3 times. The first time, she sees her father and mother. The second time, her deceased relatives. And the third time, she sees her master in paradise, before she is sacrificially slain by an old woman referred to as the Angel of Death. So, shortly after the cremation of Faye, Kratos and Atreus are visited by a stranger who cannot feel pain and engages in battle with Kratos.
I thought you'd be bigger. But you're definitely the one.
You do not want this fight.
Oh. I'm pretty sure I do.
Leave my home.
You are going to have to kill me for that to happen.
I warned you.
Finally.
So I edited this fight down because it went on for around 20 minutes. But later, through Atreus, we learn that this man that he's battling is an Aesir god, Baldur. Throughout the story, they continue to encounter Baldur. In mythology, Baldur cannot be hurt as a result of a spell from his mother Frigg, or as the game portrays her, Freya, or the Witch of the Woods. It's often believed that Frigg and Freya are the same goddess, sharing many of the same powers, attributes, and even both being married to Odin. Freya is gifted in a form of Norse magic known as Sadir, which involves seeing the course of fate and attempting to intervene or cause alternate events to happen. Through her magic, she sees that her son Baldur's death will mark the beginning of Ragnarok, or the end of days. She somehow made every object on Earth vow to never hurt him, except for mistletoe. Loki discovers this and fashions either a spear or an arrow out of mistletoe, the stories vary between which it was, and gave it to Baldur's blind brother, Hodor, who, when roughhousing, accidentally kills him with the mistletoe weapon.
Leaving so soon? When Odin sent me here, I just needed answers, but you had to act all proud. Throw whatever you have at me. I'll keep coming. That old body will give out. But before I end this, I want you to know one thing. I can't feel any of this.
So, in the game, however, Sindri the dwarf, who helps manufacture weaponry, gives Atreus some green mistletoe arrows, and, well... there's no sound for this part, the footage that I got. I didn't get to finish the game, unfortunately. The footage I got from YouTube did not have sound. So from here, Baldur and Kratos start fighting again. Kratos kills him, but Baldur's loss of invincibility enables Kratos to kill him, inadvertently setting up Ragnarok. At the end of the game, we discover that Atreus is actually Loki, or was at least supposed to be called Loki. His prophecy remains about the same. So in Atreus accidentally stabbing Baldur with the mistletoe weapon, Loki is still inadvertently causing the death of Baldur. This is how they find out about his future and what it should be. I'll skip forward a little bit. So in these prophesized murals, we see Kratos with Atreus for much of his journey, save a panel at the end, which Atreus did not view, of Kratos' death. But how does Atreus as Loki fit with the mythology? In terms of his parenting, pretty decently actually. Loki's mother is Laufey, or as she is referred to in the game, Faye. She is a Jotun, and by asking Kratos and Atreus to spread her ashes from the tallest point in the realm, she knows that this will reveal the truth about Atreus to the pair, knowing that the highest point was in Jotunheim, the land of the giants. There is little known about Loki's father, other than that his name was Farbauti. I may be saying that wrong, I probably am, and he is also a Jotun. While Kratos is half mortal and half god, and not a Jotun, he is referred to in a section of the prophecy as Farbauti, written in runes. Let's see if I can. Somewhere in here. So in the runes over there, on the side, we can see that he's referred to as Farbauti. So this name could fit well for him, as Farbauti in Old Norse translates to anger striker, a fitting description of the god of war. So there's several additional signs throughout the game that Ragnarok may be approaching, apart from the death of Baldur. Jormungandr. Oh, we have two versions of that, okay. So Jormungandr, the World Serpent, is also a harbinger of Ragnarok. He is called the World Serpent as he is large enough to wrap his entire body around the world and grasp his own tail in his mouth, forming the image of an Ouroboros. When he releases his tail, Ragnarok will begin, as outlined in the Prose Edda. We see Jormungandr several times throughout the game, although he's never shown eating his own tail. At one point, he does kind of eat Kratos and Atreus as they swim inside of him in a boat, but never his own tail. So additionally, Fenrir the Wolf will eat the sun, and the armies of the dead in Helheim will go into battle against Odin's warriors of Valhalla and the Valkyries. And I am simplifying this a lot here. However, it's here we encounter one of the bigger contrasts in mythology, the bigger contrasts between mythology and the world presented in the game. Jormungandr, Fenrir the Wolf, and Hel are all children of Loki, the boy, as we've seen throughout the game. So Loki as Atreus appears years off fathering any children, whereas Jormungandr is fully grown, and it can be assumed that Hel is as well, due to her ruling over her own realm, Helheim. However, the talking head Mimir offers a possible solution to this problem. While conversing with Jormungandr, Mimir states that the World Serpent recognizes Atreus. Atreus disputes this, to which Mimir replies that Jormungandr may have been talking about the future, as the fight between himself and Thor during Ragnarok will be so catastrophic that it will splinter Yggdrasil, the Tree of Life showing up again, and send Jormungandr back in time before his own birth. There is no mention of this within Norse mythology, or at least that I could find, in which Jormungandr instead dies at the hand of Thor during their prophesized fight, who himself only manages to take 9 steps away before succumbing to the World Serpent's poison. It'll be interesting to see where the franchise will go with their take on Norse mythology in the future. Although no games have officially been announced yet, Cory Barlog, the director, has expressed that he has plans for the future, and the game is certainly set up for players to witness Ragnarok and possibly Kratos take down another pantheon of gods. Especially with the PS5 coming out, I'm thinking we'll be seeing a sequel soon. So, that's the end. Go through some of the questions you guys have put in, and if there's any more questions, put them in the chat. So, one thing that I haven't touched on much in here that you guys have definitely brought up in chat is the fridging of Faye, the mother. However, we find out at the end that she knew all along that she would die, and she has set up an entire process for them to get where they're going. So the entire story that they go through and the journey they take wouldn't be possible without her. She's set up every little thing. Even anytime you climb up a wall, it's marked by runes. She's gone through and put all those runes in and kind of directed the path that they will take. So I think that's pretty interesting, and yeah. On the side of dad jokes, I found a video earlier with the voice actor of Kratos doing dad jokes on YouTube. It was great. And his relationship, Kratos' relationship with Atreus, at the start of the film, they don't really get along much. He's kind of a distant father. Did I say film? I meant game. But by the end of the game, so he's been calling him boy all along, and at the end, he goes, son. There's a huge growth between them. At the start, Kratos is hesitant to put his hand on his shoulder. At the end, he's doing this freely. It's definitely an awesome thing to witness throughout the story. There is still an entire pantheon of Egyptian gods to kill, and he could even go through like every single different pantheon of gods we have. Like, it'd be kind of cool to see him take on others. This franchise only exists in Western mythology. Which franchise are you referring to? So my favorite out of the 3 series that I've talked about, I'd probably have to say Uncharted. I grew up with that game. The first game got me into gaming other than just Sims. And to the point where I got a PS3 of my own just for the game. I got a PS Vita just for the extra game that was there. I got a PS4 just so I could play it. In the next few weeks, I am getting a Uncharted tattoo. And we find out in the 4th game, a bit of a spoiler, but you find out in the 4th game that Nate isn't actually a descendant of Sir Francis Drake, and his original surname was Morgan. My surname. I broke down crying in that. This game has a massive place in my heart. But I love the Tomb Raider games as well. They're beautiful. This is the first God of War game that I've played through, and I'm loving it. So I'm definitely excited to see what else we get. Oh, God of War doesn't represent women well? Okay, probably the first one. Probably maybe not the other ones to play through. Okay. So the setting of the game isn't ever explicitly named other than they are in Midgard, but yet they travel to the different realms. Norse mythology, well, the Norse world is set with 9 realms that are connected through Yggdrasil, the world tree. So one of the realms is Midgard, which is our Earth, which is where they are currently living, although it's definitely an adapted version. So the other realms, there's Elfheim, Jotunheim, Helheim. Asgard, and a collection of others that I cannot remember. But yeah. Okay. So I think I might wrap it up there. Okay. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed. I will be in Twitch chat for a while if you've got any more questions. And on the Discord, check out the other talks we've got coming up later. And I hope you're enjoying RKO Gaming Con so far. We're looking forward to next year.